Hello, Kyle Coberline here, a truck and RV sales professional at Bluegrass International Trucks, Buses, RVs, and Ideal Lease. I'm at home now after a long day, but I did have the pleasure of meeting with Robert Scott from Viking Bodies this morning, and he did an amazing walk around with our customer on their product that they build and put on an international HV for us. So I'm just going ahead and get to it, and we'll get over to what Robert's got to say about their product.
We got no major shells for salt and nastiness to accumulate to help rot it out. Our long runners are trapezoidal design, so they're one piece. It's formed one solid piece and it's welded to the floor sheet. Where that comes in nice is there's no seam here, can be on a lot of our competitors. It's self-draining, so there's a drain hole at the back. It's got braces, as you can see the weld works. As you go down, it's got braces in it, so it makes it even more stronger structurally. The design of that allows us to do the cross-memberless floor because it's supporting the weight of the floor. And so it's all self-draining. You got the cushion strip on the bottom, that's stick welded, but everything's continuously welded. And then it's got a drain hole. The reason for the drain hole is if somehow you drop something heavy enough in that floor to crack it, if it was above that long runner, there's no drain hole, that's just going to fill with water. And if it's full of water and in the wintertime that water freezes, you're going to swell and bust your cross member, you're going to bust welds out. So that design, we've been running with that my whole career, so over 15 years. We utilize the trunnion mounted cylinder, so where it attaches to the body is low, which helps with center of gravity when dumping. Also limits the size of the doghouse that we have to put in the body. If you got a head lift cylinder, you've got about a 2.5 foot doghouse. As you're hauling blacktop, you get debris that build up into the corners. The more debris you get built up in the corner over time, the more unstable and unsafe this truck becomes, because that's high weight center of gravity get thrown off. So you'll end up with less buildup. You won't be chiseling as much junk out of your dump body on a regular basis as you would with the head lift style. Trunnion mounted also comes into play because of longevity. Your head lift cylinder is a hard mount point at the bottom, or at the top, and a hard mount point at the bottom. So any articulation of the body when it's raised gets transferred to the seals of the cylinder. Most of your cylinders on a dump body, after about a year and a half, they're leaking. So you're repacking them or replacing them. This comes with a factory 2-year warranty from that. The reason for that is that ring where it mounts to the body and swivels is rubber mounted. So it takes some of that strain and that articulation before it gets transferred to the seals of the cylinder. It also, like I said, when you go up, because the fitting there and not the floor sheet, that actually tilts away from the body instead of having to be cut into the body. For our setup, we got mid points for the cylinder, or mode to where you can put this body down, you can grease the cylinder so you're not underneath it trying to grease it. Serviceability can be done from the ground, from the driver's side. Make it easier for something to get done, chances are it's going to get maintained. We do the grease holes. All of our wires for the controller and for the strobe light system come out of the back of the cab versus out of the floor, so you don't have a strain relief in your floor where water gets up in, gets in the floor mat, rots the floor of your truck out. This has been approved through engineering with International. They certified the put it there, we can put that size of strain relief there and not damage anything structurally with the cab. From there we bring our wires out to a hard mounting point, and we route them away from international wiring just to make it to where if you're looking for an international wire, you go through their groups of wires. So if you're looking for a body function wire, it's up here by itself. It's segregated, makes it easier to work on. If you know what you're looking, whose wire you're looking for, you know where to look to separate it out. We put a lot of, unfortunately my installers love zip ties, so as you're working on it, you'll cut a bunch of zip ties, but it's secure. We pay attention to rub points, we pay attention to accessibility. We try to limit as many rub points and wear points as we can as we're doing an install. Same thing, hydraulic hoses. Keep them out of the frame, you keep them away from air lines, you keep them away from factory wires, so therefore you're helping to limit rub points on the factory wires, you're helping to limit rub points on the hoses, so you end up with a less wear. There we go back to the hinge area. We put a junction point there to make serviceability easier. If you blow your hoist down hose, you're replacing a little over a 10-foot hose, or a little over a 10-foot hose, you're not replacing a 22-foot hose. So if you damage something on this half, you're only replacing this half, you're not replacing the whole thing. Makes it a little bit cheaper on repair. Makes it a lot easier on repair because you're only going one length. Same thing, hoses coming out to the rub rail side pockets. They're 84-inch long versus 284 inches long. You got the brake point. It also makes for a nicer routing, and you can secure through the body pivot a little bit easier by doing the both ends in the back. Here on the side for spreader application, so all your disconnecting is done up here, not down underneath the truck. Keeps it away from the asphalt, keeps it away from road dirt during the summer. In the winter time, if you have to hook up to it after the truck's already all wet, you're not getting dripped on, you're not getting dirty, you're hooking them up here. To service this, you can take these two bolts out, pull this out, and you can get all the connections behind this plate. This again is continuously welded, therefore it's trying to keep as much moisture buildup out of this pocket as it can get. Our hinge design, this has our block style hinge with integrated body prop. So your body prop is part of the hinge. The caution with that is, if your body prop is in, do not try to pressure the cylinder down. You will cause damage. But as far as supporting the weight of the body without hydraulic pressure, it will support the weight. It's internally braced, so you won't end up with any deflection from that pin. The pin actually stops the hinge block, not the long runner. So there again, you're not going to damage your long runner with that pin unless you power it down, and then it's just a matter of you got a 10-foot lever with 500 pounds of down pressure. Always make sure you pull your hinge pin out. If you're working underneath it, put the body prop in place. And I always recommend put your hairpin in, just so you're used to. Every time I put that pin into a position, I'm putting the hairpin in place, so you always remember to put your hairpin back when you put the body prop pin in its holder. Without that, there's a chance it could bounce out. It's about a 2-pound pin, 60 miles an hour would be pretty going down the road. Our quarter post, our tailgate design is electric over air tailgate. On the international truck, we're utilizing the international supplied air blocks, electric over air air solenoid blocks. That's the air cylinder that's in between the long runners, and that runs an over center tailgate latch. So once this locks, the eccentrics actually locks over center. So if you lose air pressure, it's still locked mechanically. We have a override, so if you lose air pressure, you can, it's a 1/2 inch, you can unlock this. If you got a load of asphalt sitting on here, but your air system failed, you can unlock this with a wrench, dump your asphalt off where it needs to, lock it back up, bring it to the shop, figure out what happened with the air system. All of our spreader connections are up here in the corner post. There again, trying to keep them up out of the weather debris, any chance of damage. We try to tuck them in nice out of the way. Our corner post design is flush with the tailgate. So with that, we can incorporate a Wayland light system. We can do standard LED oval lighting systems, but this body features a Wayland system. So it's all LED. The stop, tail, and turn and the reverse light are operated through the International Supply chassis harness, bodybuilder harness. The strobe light here, the strobe light here, and the two on the cab shield. It's a single piece wire from the connection inside this box all the way into the cab of the truck to the strobe light box. No splices, no weather pack connections other than inside of an enclosure, so you have less likelihood of failure. Until you get a nick or something in the wire, you're not gonna have a light failure and have to go which connection is better. It's one connection here, all the way into the cab of the truck. Two-way tailgate design. You can pull the pin, put your chains up here, lay your tailgate flat. When it's out flat, it will be a flat surface from the base of the tailgate sheet to the floor. So if you're shoveling off of it, you're not getting a sudden stop. And then latches down here, all cut. There's no cast pieces on our body. Our hinges are not cast. They're flame cut. Same thing with our latches, they're frame cut. So if you're unfortunate incident of hitting this with a loader and you bend this, you can bend it back into place, it's not going to break. Cast piece, you bend it once, you try to straighten it out, it's broken. With our flush corner post design, it allows us to do our backup cameras in the corner post, so it's a bullet camera inside the post. It's protected from damage as best as it can be, so you're not got a piece of equipment going to knock it off. You're not underneath the hinge where it's going to get ruined by asphalt and rocks. It's up here high mounted, so even hauling asphalt, temperature's not going to get to it. Bolt on asphalt lip helps discharge into your spreader or into like your asphalt pavers. Also gives you a full width guide for tailgating. Rock onto a road or onto a shoulder. It's boltable because if you back into something and you damage it, you can replace it. Or you can take it off, beat it back into shape, and then put it back on. Our mud clamps are a hinge style. If you're doing a lot of tailgating or a lot of asphalt work, you can pull the pin. Pull the hairpin, pull the pin out. You can take your mud clamp, throw it in the toolbox, throw it in the passenger seat of the truck. Not tear it up if you're doing extended amounts of paving or tailgating of rock. Help save your mud clamps a little bit. Because the weld-on audio latches work in conjunction with the V-box spreader to help hold in a V-box spreader. You can run a strap. You can also take this if you got a bunch of brush. You can get a nylon strap and you can go from here all the way over to the other side and help try to hold brush in. You're not trying to use your tarp and tearing it up with sticks and points. Our tarp arms are underneath the top rub rail. One that keeps it from being a spring down under the body that can get exposed to damage. It also changes the angle of the arm to assist with keeping a clear opening into the side of the body. Stainless steel toolbox. Solenoid for your hydraulic system. It's right here. It's a key hot or a key activated solenoid. It's fused under this cover. That supplies the power to the hydraulic control tower into the module that's inside of the valve. Tarp control or tarp reversing solenoid is in the battery box as well. There again, put it in a safe location. Keep it out of the elements. a little bit, but it also is close to the battery, protected by a breaker. That way, everything's contained into one spot. Easy to find, easy to work on, easy to maintain. There, go around the. Got your stainless steel hall lights with the heated LED hall light.
It looks LED.
Let's make sure it's a heated version.
Oh,
The reason for heated lenses is, or heated housing, LEDs do not put off the same heat as incandescent or halogen. So they can start to ice up. When they're heated, it'll keep the ice cleared off. Stainless steel brackets. We do rubber isolators on the hood. The bolt hole through the hood has a rubber isolator as well. And then on the inside of the hood, we've got a large fender washer just to try to keep vibration from cracking your hood over time. It's a pretty heavy headlight, but it's solid. It's all tied in through the international. It's got one wire harness, non-rated for longevity and protection. And it's plugged in through the international supplied ball light plug. So that's a feature code provided through the international programming. It allows us to have that plug in. We utilize it. When you flip your switch on, it cancels your headlights out or your fog lights out. That's your certified central hydraulics. Inside of here, there's your wire diagram with the part numbers. So any part number you need, you can find it. Then you got your hydraulic layout right here, as well as what your valves are. Here's the output module for your all your electronic controls, hoist, spreader, plow, your electric over hydraulic valves to shift the spools for your functions. Get a manual override on each valve section. Takes an 8mm wrench, and then it'll work just like a lever would. Put it on there. Your cartridge valves for your spreader, spinner, and pre-wet, or auger, spinner, and pre-wet. They're going to have a manual override if you're testing it. All of your plug-ins on the certified system have an LED indicator. So if you're trying to troubleshoot moving my joystick but the function ain't moving, you can figure out whether it's a hydraulic issue or electronic issue by watching the LED light. If it lights up, then it's a good signal. Same thing with all your DIN connectors. They've got an LED on them. System pressure gauge. So when you turn it on, it'll tell you what your standby pressure, if you have to do any adjustments on your pump. Standby pressure should be about 300 pounds, 300, 350 pounds PSI for standby pressure. It's a load sensing piston pump. So as you just got it on and you're not operating anything, it's a real low flow, just enough to keep system pressure built up. When you activate it, it's going to supply what is demanded. So if you got your spinner running and your auger running, and then you need to move your plow, it'll still move. You don't run into a starving for oil situation like you would with a fixed displacement pump because of the variable displacement. When you peak it out, the max system pressure is set for about 2,000 psi. You got your return filter. I want to say it's a 40 micron return filter with a gauge to tell you as it gets dirty, you're going to start to get to the bypass. If it's bypassing, you want to replace it because you're not getting any filtration. It's also got a suction strainer. So if something gets knocked in the cap when you got it open, big particles will get caught by that strainer versus going through the pump and going through the hydraulic system, and then everything coming back on the return goes through the return filter. Helps keep your oil cleaner. The other advantage to the variable displacement piston pump is with your hydraulics on but nothing being used, you get a real low flow rate, so you're not going to generate the pressure or the heat buildup like you can see with a piston pump. Or a gear pump, fixed displacement pump, it's always putting out the same amount, whether it's being used or not. And so with it turning over oil constantly, you usually end up with a heat issue. This won't have a heat issue unless you have a function that's stuck. Switches, all of the international chassis functions. Here's somebody that works with DLB, you'll hear him as an 059 code. That's all right here. We keep all the international program stuff into one switch. Diff lock, transmission mode, that's the same as on the old Allison panels. Used to have the mode button. That's up here now because that panel's gone. Your gear selector's here. Does the same thing. Turn it on, it kind of puts it in performance mode where it holds the gear longer, downshifts sooner. Where that comes in handy on a slow nice truck is when you're pumping.
So performance is secondary?
Transmission mode, yes.
Okay. I know it can be programmed either way.
And then fog lights, there again is international supplied. So we put it up here, there's your fog light switch. It cancels out the headlights, turns on the international supplied circuit for fog lights, and then we feed off of that plug-in. Snow valve, that's your air intake. So when you flip that on, it shuts the damper, makes it draw under the hood air versus from the sides of the hood. Because when you're out plowing snow and you're getting that kick up the snow, you don't want to suck all them ice particles into the air cleaner, plug up your air cleaner, or to make it past the air cleaner, get in and damage the motor. So that's your under the hood or external vents. Part 3 gen, same thing. Part 3 gen has been programmed for 10 years or so now. They've had Part 3 gen out. The PTO is set through a international program feature. We remove the max speed, we remove the max RPM limits for the PTO because it is a snowplow truck and you need to have all-the-time PTO. We do leave the engagement in. If they're above 3 miles an hour and try to engage it on the fly, it will not engage. And we leave the RPM on engagement, it won't engage if the RPM is above 1,000. So if they're sitting here and the truck idles up, they have to step on the brake to bring the RPM back down, then hit their switch. When this is activated, it'll tell you it's in good status. If something with the parameters is telling this switch not to supply power, that'll flash indicating that. Right now, our pump engaged is not lit because there's no pressure to the pressure switch on the Chelsea PTO. So if you did flip this and for some reason the lube line is not getting pressure from the transmission, this won't turn on. Obviously your pump's off because it's not engaged. Once that pressure switch is engaged, or does have the hydraulic pressure from the transmission to engage the clutch pack with a PTO, this indicator will have light. So if this isn't lit, this shouldn't be. And then if this is lit, this isn't, then we know we've got either pressure switch problem, PTO is working, and we got pressure switch problem, or a wire issue coming up. And this runs back to the RPM inputs. Then we get into all of our switches that we program and add. We try to keep them in the same lengths. Tarp wind and unwind. All that controls is that tells the RPM module to send an output. We take that output, run it down here to the reversing relay, and then that reversing relay, it's low power on the unwind and unwind, and then it takes the power from the battery and actually moves the car. So it's interlocked 15 miles an hour. If they're going above 15 miles an hour, they push the button, it's just going to beep and then not do nothing. There again, it saves your tarp motor, saves your tarp arms. Hopefully that, with doing the 15 miles an hour, if they're running 15 miles an hour and they're starting to come up to a tree, hopefully it gives them time to see the tree and either stop the truck or stop moving the tarp to try to prevent damage, but it mainly is to prevent wear and tear on the motors. Air tailgate open and close. They operate international supplied air blocks on the frame for this electric over air solenoid. It's powered through the body control module, all the international wiring until you get to that valve block, from that valve block to the tailgates, airlines, the air cylinder itself. Anything up to that, the blocks are with the truck. They're an international part number. They've got good reliability, but there again, there is an opportunity for corrosion. Any electrical circuit has an opportunity for corrosions. It's interlocked at, it will not open above 25 miles an hour. And then if it's left open above 25 miles an hour, it'll lock. If it locks because of an overspeed, the only way to reopen it is to get down below the speed, turn the switch off, turn it back on. The spreader light is programmed through the RPM module. Punch the spreader light on the rear. Its only interlock is it'll blink. You get a solid light, it's good status, the light should be on. It has 0 voltage, or if it draws more than 20 amps. If it has 0 amps or it's drawing more than 20 amps, that light will flash saying a bad status. Either you've got a short in the wire, or it's just not drawing because the LED burned up. Strobe lights, same thing. It's powered through the RPM module. It's set for 0 amp draw, it's going to show a bad status, or above 20 amps, it's going to show a bad status. That's just the body control module. That's the international computer system protecting itself. Virtual fuses versus actually having to replace the fuse. Low warn, flip that on. It reduces the output from the strobe lights. The intensity is reduced. So from an operator standpoint, what that's for is at night, especially in a driving rainstorm or a driving snowstorm, you get reflection coming back from your strobes, blinding the driver, making it hard for the driver to see. Turn the intensity down, you get less reflection back on you. You still got the strobe flashing, but it's less intensity. Driver gets better visibility, driver is safer. The other advantage is at night, cars coming up behind you, less intensity on them. Anybody that's passed a cop on the side of the road late at night and you're squinting because you can't see, and then for 3 seconds after you pass him, you couldn't see if he was standing beside his door or if he was in his car, creates a safety hazard. High intensity at night is a bad thing. So this has a programmed low warning. It's all controlled through the Wayland control system. Clear lights is labeled. On our front strobe lights, they have a 180-degree view light, and on the bottom of it, it's got white LEDs that shine down as a puddle light, and then it also has an alley light like a cop car or a spotlight that points out. So at night, you turn your clear lights on, everything right here with the body down, everything right here by this step in the back of your cab will be lit up. They're being little LEDs, they're pretty bright. Plus, like if you're on a scene and a tree down or something, you can turn them on and it's going to cast light out from the cab shields. The dump valve, and it's going to beep at you saying, hey, you're holding your dump valve, but the dump valve controls the solenoid in the valve body. Because these are electric over hydraulic controlled spools, if you have trapped pressure, the only way to shift that spool is through the manual override or your joystick, but your joystick is going to require hydraulic pressure to shift the spool. As soon as you do shift that spool, if it's deadheaded, it's going to 2,000 psi. If you hold the dump valve, it's going to keep that down at 350. Standby pressure is not going to let the pump stroke out to provide more fluid. So if you have trapped pressure like in your plow lines, you can push that dump valve, hit your plow function, go in the opposite direction, and it'll release one side, and then you go the other way, you can plug in the other. That's the only way to try to help control an electronically shifted spool, is to try to stop the pump from supplying low pressure. So, that's strictly, like I said, in conjunction with the hydraulic system. The 2 indicator lights tells you your strobe light's on. So even though this might be a good status, if the system's not in good status, this one won't light up. But if your key is off, it lights up. This indicator doesn't light up because it's controlled through the key on purpose. Our indicators are always active circuit. Same thing with our strobe lights, a battery operated switch. So that lets the operator know. Or if they leave it on, turn the key off, get out of the truck, good idea is turn around, look back, hey, do I leave my strobes on? So that's the point for the strobe indicator, and then our pump indicator we covered is off the pressure switch for the PTA. Actual feedback from the PTA. All of our key hot functions come from this fuse panel here, which is supplied from International, and then we run it down into the junction boxes that we can run everything out to. Your Wayland, this controls all of the Wayland lighting. So any of the strobes, all of the strobes, like I was saying out there with the body, how the wire from the connection at the light head all the way into the cab of the truck is one solid wire, no breaks. This is where they all run. This strobe system can be reprogrammed to different flash patterns. They're getting fancy enough now with the way in the systems to where you can have multiple inputs. You can run an input from your blinker into this box and into one of the input sections. When you turn your blinker on, it can cancel out your quarter pulse strobes, but the rest of your strobes stay. Helps kind of eliminate from confusion, somebody falling behind you and your strobe flashing, but they didn't see your blinker on. They didn't see your blinker because your strobe was flashing. They weren't paying attention to your blinker. And then they run in the back of you and say, well, you didn't turn your blinker on. Yeah, I did. You just didn't see it. So Wayland's getting more involved with their light packages. You can also do, I've done some setups in the past where we run a reverse output from the reverse into one of the inputs. Every time they put the truck in reverse, it changes the flash pattern. So as all of the operators get used to that, they don't have to rely on a reverse beeper or anything. They see a truck in the yard and the flash pattern changed to a set desired flash pattern. Everybody knows, hey, that truck's in reverse, it's probably backing up. So you don't have to be behind it, you don't have to hear a beeper, you can be in a distance and know what this guy's doing as you're pulling in the yard. Just different safety things. You can run different inputs for multiple flash patterns. Like you want one flash pattern for one instance, you can have an input for that. You want a flash pattern for hauling at night, you can have a flash pattern for that. I mean, they're getting so adaptive with the technology in the strobe markets that just your old beacon light, it works, but it's outdated. Plus, it makes it easy. I mean, with the actual panel, it makes it easier troubleshooting, it makes it easier diagnostic, it makes it a lot clearer inside. We can go through. Well, camera system, I got it set program default to come up to the 2-screen display. You can toggle through multiple display options. If you want just one camera because you want all of the screen to be one camera, you can select just one camera. It's upgradable to up to 4 cameras, so you could add cameras to them. But it's default going to go to the split screen. It's our quarter post light cameras have 10 infrared LEDs. So at night, this is a full color night vision LED system, infrared system. Color quality ain't quite as good as night vision, but it's not old school night vision where it's a green with shadows. It also has a microphone back there. So if you have the volume up and you have your camera system on and somebody's at the back saying, hey, whoa, 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 you can hear it through that system. Most of the time you're just going to hear road noise and engine noise, so I always keep them turned down. Just got remote control for it. On the certified system, you're on and off. I'm just going to go through all of this setup and diagnostic just like any other computer. You display your rate, that's your auger. It's displayed in pounds per lane mile. Your rate knob. And all of that part of the calibration, you can control how much per click it is. If you want it 10 pounds like it is now, if you want it 1 pound at a time, or if you want it 25 pounds at a time, you can change how fast or whatever turns up to you. You can set the max amount that it'll give them. So if the county decides, hey, the max I ever want the driver putting out is 400 pounds per lane mile, you can set that the max be 400 pounds per lane mile. No matter how long they spin that knob, once they get to 400, 450 pounds per lane mile, it's not going any higher. Your lane, that's how fast your spinner's spinning. That controls your spinner rate. Basically, every click is 25, 50, 75, 100% valve trim. And you can set the min and max trim, so you can put it to where the max broadcast width is going to be 30 feet. Test that by throwing a shovel full on the spinner or having some material in it and let it spray. If it's spreading too wide, you can adjust the trim down. So then that there again, once they're up there, no matter how long they keep spinning this, they're not spreading it any further. Pause just turns it on and off. Starts and stops, whatever it's set at. Because it's selected into auto mode, it's going to be based off of your speed. The faster you go, it's going to do everything it can. I mean, up to a certain miles per hour, you're going to run out of capability of the hydraulic system. It's going to limit it, but most of the time you're not spreading it 70 miles an hour. It's going to adjust the pounds per lane mile based off of your speed. As you speed up, it's still going to be 400 pounds per lane mile. You slow down, still 400 pounds per lane mile. Come to a stop, the system stops. Blast mode, you can set a programmed blast, and you push and hold it, it'll blast until you let go of it. If you just push it, it has a timer you set if you want 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds of blast at 800 pounds per lane mile. Where that comes in handy, either again, you get into an intersection that you know has ice problems or traction problems, you want to put more salt down in that area. As they come to that intersection, hit the blast button, comes on for the 5 seconds, shuts back off. Bridges, going over top of the bridge where you want more material than what you're spreading throughout the whole lane or the whole route. Come over a bridge, hit the blast button, it puts more salt down on the bridge, stops at your timer, or click the button again and shuts it off. Mode just toggles through the different modes: manual mode, unload mode, or auto. Unload mode is for what that sounds like. You got material in the spreader, you're done with the storm, back in the barn, turn it in unload mode, crank it up, puts out all your material back into the shed. And manual mode, so if you're not running a closed loop system calibrated pounds per lane mile, then you can have one manual. Hold the button down for menu, and it's very limited. Right now it's set on, user level is set on operator. Very limited on what they have access to, where they can look at. They can look at storm totals, they can look at data views, so you can see your storm total, and you can name your storms. December 7th, 2020. And then everything they spread until you stop that certain storm. Keep track of all that information. Paperwork wise, it's a breeze. I know this truck covered this many miles, putting down this much per lane mile, used this much salt. You have all that storm totals, and you can name the storms and save them. It's got a thumb drive access over here. You can plug your USB thumb drive in, pull it off of this system, take it in, put it into your computer system. Okay. do an annual total, the whole year, it's going to run the cumulative. Every storm you program that year, it's all going to count into the annual total until you tell it to restart the next year. System setup, the only thing they have is date and time, user ID, and then day brightness, night brightness. If they find out, hey man, this thing's too bright at night, they can turn their contrast down. Anytime you're in a menu and you adjust it, hit OK. If you hit cancel, it didn't change it, you go back to it, it's what it was already set up. So every time you change something and you want it to save that, you push OK. Alarm list will tell you part of the diagnostic, overspeed warnings, auger sensor warnings, all of them will calculate in that list and keep track of when it occurred. So if they come up and say, hey man, the thing just started happening, you can look at this and you can say, really? Last night it happened at this time, this time, this didn't just happen. Some accountability there. Or if you got something that's the driver's saying, hey, it's doing this error, every time you look at it, it's not doing that error, you can look at the list and say, well, it is. Okay, what were you doing when it caused this error? Helps you try to duplicate what the failure is. Some other ones are just informational. Material selection. So if you program and calibrate it for salt, you name it just salt. Okay, if you have times where you're running a salt sand mixed, you can set up calibration for salt sand mix. You can name salt sand mix, you can name salt. They can come in and they can switch their material to any programmed material, and it'll change the parameters to that material. Because usually like your pounds per lane mile of a salt, straight salt, is different than your pounds per lane mile of salt sand mix. One, the amount that you want to spread plus the amount of weight. So you can do multiple materials. And that's all that this will let them do from the user side. Change user level, you can select technician level. It gives you a little bit more access to some of the valve trims and some of the calibration information. And then the administrator level gives you access to everything. So you are definitely in your valve trims, your calibration, rates, max rates, min rates. And it gives you access to everything that Certified allows you to change parameter wise, and the system is on that administrator level. Those two can be password protected. Default, the only one that's password protected is the administrator level. Let's get that. Your pre-wet liquid. You get into pre-wetting, liquid on and off, turn it on, and then to adjust the rate, you just touch it, go up or down, and you push OK. And that is tied off of, that is based off of pounds per ton of salt. So if you have a closed loop pre-wet system, based off of what you're spreading is the amount of pre-wet it's going to dispense. So it verifies off of the rate sensor. And it will start with the truck, it'll stop with the truck. And then if they want to do just salt, they just turn it back off. If it's grayed out, it's not active. If it's on, then it's active. From this screen, you can also look at your strong totals. Joysticks, hoist up and down, is a dead man operation, so you have to push the button on top. The reason they do that is if somebody sets something on this console, or if they're just riding down the road and their hand hits that lever, because it's very little effort needed, they don't want it inadvertently raising the body up, because everybody knows what that causes. Plow function is not programmed as a dead man. Could be if it needed to be, but most of the time your plows don't need to be programmed as a dead man. They can push the button, it's not going to do nothing, or not push the button, it's still going to operate. Body up is indicated through the proximity switch here on the hoist basket. So If this is on but the body is down, you may have to adjust the sensor a little bit closer to the body, and then your little warning light comes on. Tell the operators shut your PTO off. It's running on low oil, won't burn the hydraulic system up. Other than that, like I said, all of our key hot sources that we required for the tower, for the power module in the valve body, power module for the certified system in the battery box, comes from this fuse box. Runs into outputs that we run into these dry boxes. We run a harness, input and output harness from the RPM box into this dry box. There again, if you have to add something or take something away, you're not trying to remove a pin out of a plug. It's take a wire lead off of the post. Any other questions on operations?
I think so.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that walk around that Robert did. If you guys have any needs, always feel free to reach out to me and we'll do whatever we can to help. And thanks for watching my video.